Ooh, shaking. Okay, welcome guys to today's paint and sip adventure. We're going under the sea today, and this is going to be a pretty easy painting, a really good one for beginners. It might look a little bit tricky, but I promise it's a lot easier than you think it's going to be. So let's go ahead and get started with what we're going to need for materials. So on my palette, I have good 2 dabs of white here, and then I've got phthalo blue and cadmium yellow. But if you just want to use a warmer blue, I wouldn't use ultramarine blue for this one. It's gonna do something funky when it plays with the yellow. But yeah, so if you can get a more of a warm blue and a nice medium yellow. I've already sort of messed up my yellow here, but if it's a warm yellow, that'll be fine too. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab, oh, and then we're also, I'm sorry, before I get started, we're gonna use black as well later. So again, that's just 4 colors, black and white, and then yellow and blue. So I've got 2 dabs or 2 scoops of white. Maybe I'm gonna grab a 3rd scoop of white. And then I had about a scoop of yellow. And then I'm gonna go for a scoop of this blue here. And that's going to give me my darker blue that I'm gonna use at the bottom of this painting. So I'm gonna just take a scoop of that over and then add another 2 scoops of white in there. And then I'm gonna move a scoop of that over. I'm gonna add some more yellow, just a bit. And I'm also gonna grab some more white paint for myself. And I'm gonna put some of that right there. So I'm gonna say that was about 1 scoop of my previous mix with a scoop of white and a scoop of yellow. That's looking a little bit too yellow to me, so I'm gonna grab another scoop of white and I'm gonna go for what's left of the blue there. About a half a scoop of blue, I would say. And a little bit more white. Perfect. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do, add a little bit of water to this to thin it out. And then I'm gonna start up in the corner here. And I'm going to start painting this sort of fan shape situation out from the top. So I'm going to bring that down at least a 1/3 of the way down my canvas. And again, if your paint's getting a little bit thick, if you're getting those little white spots like that, you can just add a little bit of water. All right, so I guess at least a 1/3, maybe almost to halfway down the canvas. And then I'm not gonna bother cleaning my brush. I am gonna add some more water to it. And I'm gonna thin out that middle section of this sort of somewhere between a teal and aqua blue. And I'm gonna add that to the middle 1/3 of my canvas. And I'm gonna do some X-shaped strokes where the sort of aqua green color and my sort of bluish teal color are meeting. Just to blend those 2 in. Again, I'm not washing my brush, I'm just kind of letting that happen. And then again, I'll keep adding this to my canvas. but I'm getting the next third of it painted. Again, doing more of these X-shaped strokes. Try to say that 3 times in a row. Harder than it looks. And then again, I'll bring that down a little further, maybe add a little bit of extra water to the paint down here. And then I'm going to grab some more water for that first color that we made, that sort of deeper teal. And I'm going to bring that all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. And I'm going to put in some X-shaped strokes down to the bottom here and kind of feather that in a little bit. If it gets up about halfway, that's fine. And if you get a little bit more than you intended, you can just use a drier brush. So just don't add any more paint. And you can just go ahead and feather that out. Just going back and forth, changing up your position of your brush every once in a while. And that is going to give you a sort of varied color look. Again, I'm bringing that all the way down to the bottom, and then I'm going to do some X-shaped strokes down here to kind of blend that in a little bit more. We don't need it to be a perfect gradient. If it looks a little bit funny, that actually works really well. And then I'm going to water a little bit of that down just to help blend it out a little bit more. All right, so we've got our canvas painted, and then I'm gonna go ahead and clean out my brush. So I'm getting this darker tone off the brush. So I've cleaned that out, and then I've got a big scoop of white here, and I'm gonna add that into the greenest of our mixes with the lightest one. And then I'm going to, for me, my canvas is pretty small, so I'm just gonna go about 2 fingers or 3 fingers in from each side. So it's kind of visually about 1/3 of the way over. And then probably about 3/4 of the way up. And I just started with a circle there. And then after that, I'm going to start making this sort of like starburst shape and adding in rays of light. And you'll notice, whoops, I didn't add much extra paint once I got in that circle. And then I'm just using a drier brush to kind of go back and forth. And if you do what I just did, you get some of that darker blue in there, that's totally fine. Don't worry about it at all. All right, so I've got that in there. And then there's no paint on my brush left, so I'm gonna just pick up a little bit more and add that on top. Add a few longer streaks in here as well. I'm gonna add a little bit of water to that. I like that better. So I just dipped my brush into a little bit of water, and then I'm adding a few more of these longer streaks in here. Right, that's probably enough. So then I'm gonna leave my brush dirty. That's fine, I'm not gonna clean it. I'm gonna grab some more of this white So I grabbed a scoop of white and then I'm just blending it with what's left over on the brush. And then I'm gonna go ahead back to my little starburst here, add in some more of this white, or sort of almost white color. Got a layer of that in there. I'm gonna give myself a little bit more white here. And then again, I'll just grab some white and I'm gonna add a layer of white, again, starting from the center, and I'm not gonna bring this one out as far. I'm just gonna add a few highlights here and there to this one. And then I'm gonna add a few little streaks, again, coming out from the center. They don't need to be even. Okay. And then we are going to take a dry break. So if you want to talk amongst yourselves, jam for a few minutes, take a bathroom break, whatever. If you just want to pause the video, I'm going to wait until my paint is less glossy, and then I will come back and we'll do some more painting. We'll get some of these guys in here. And if you're wondering why this background is ever so slightly different in color, this one's a little bit more warm, it's because I totally cheated and I used a pre-mixed background color, this seafoam kind of color. So if you find a tube of paint that you see that you really like the color, you can totally just use that. And then I added more phthalo blue as I went down. But the layering process, it's the same, it's just a different bottle of paint. So again, I'm just going to wait for a few minutes for this to dry out. So I'll see you guys back in a few minutes. All right, guys. So if your painting is taking forever to dry, you can definitely put it in front of a fan. That will help things dry a little bit faster. At the studio, we used to have hair dryers out for some of our paintings that would just take forever. When we had some impatient people or some people that were kind of slower, you can grab a blow dryer and you can hit it with a blow dryer. Another way to get your painting to dry faster that now you can't go back and redo it, but for future, if you add, the more water that you add to your paint, the thinner it gets and the more quickly it will dry out. So obviously I painted this part first, so it's dry. And then down here, this is dry as well. Some of the white, still a tiny bit shiny, but I'm not going to be painting right on top of this, so I'm gonna get started. So do what you need to do, but I'm going to go ahead. So I'm gonna switch over to a small brush. This is kind of rounded at the end. My medium brush that I was using before, you could also have used a larger brush if you wanted to, but these were from Five Below, and it came in like a 25 pack. And the pack, it just had like flat square bristles, and there were two of them. They were basically the same size, so I decided to just take a pair of scissors and I cut this so that it's around, or I was taught that these were called filbert, but yeah, I preferred this one, so this size or this shape. So I definitely went ahead and did that. So I might do that. These are the same size, so I figured I'd just keep this one the way it is. And then this one came more to a square point, so I took a pair of scissors and I made it a little bit pointier. I've also got another super fine detail brush here, but I don't need that one right now. So if it's not quite perfect, you can hack it a little bit. All right, but anyway, I am actually gonna grab the medium brush for a second. I'm taking my black, and then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just dipping my brush in the water, and I'm scooping and then just wiping off the brush with the water, and then I'm going to add the black paint straight into the water. This is why I like using plates, because I can really thin things out and it doesn't run all over the place because it's in a plate. Okay, so once I've got this nice and thin, I'm gonna use this to start sketching my my first ocean animal here. And I'm thinking of them as like, I started thinking that they were like orcas, but then I was thinking they kind of remind me of the whale sharks. So whatever you want it to be, you can change it, but I'm gonna start going. So just about the center of the canvas, I'm going to start with a kind of a paisley type shape. It's sort of a drop shape with a twist, and using the thinner paint, I can kind of move this out. So you can start drawing it a tiny bit smaller than you want it. And then I'm gonna pull that over. I'm gonna go ahead and fill that in. And then I'm gonna put in a little fin here. So it's just a sort of C shape. And then I'm gonna follow that. And then I'll do another little C shape over here. And then follow that. I'm gonna go ahead and fill those little guys in. And then at the bottom for a tail, I'm gonna have a little V shape. And then I'm gonna fill in another little V shape. So there we go, we've got our first little whale shark in there. And then for the second one, I'm gonna have that kind of like dancing around the first one and the light. So again, I'm gonna start with, if you wanna start with a circle, you can do that. That might be easier, we'll try that. And then I'm going to put in a C shape. And then I'll put in another C shape to follow that. And then I'm going to put in a C shape going back towards the tail. And another one to follow that. And then on the opposite side, another one pointing towards the tail. And you guessed it, another one to follow that. So then I'm going to grab some more of this watered down black paint. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill that in. Oh, I forgot the end of the tail here. I'm gonna do like a more smooshed type V shape, and then I'll just cap it off. All right, and then I'll go ahead and fill that in. Okay, so after we've got that, I'm gonna go ahead and look at my reference here. I went about 1/3 of the way up the canvas, and then I'm going to go ahead and just draw in a little bit of a wavy line, and then I'm gonna fill that in with black paint. And I personally really like the look of sort of thinned out black paint. I think it's nice when, actually I'm gonna switch over to the medium brush. So just to make that a little bit faster, or I guess the large brush in this case, but often this is the medium brush. But anywho, I really like the look of thinned out black paint over another color because I think it makes the shadows look really luminous. But if you wanna go thicker, you know, it's totally fine to use more paint, but when you first start out like sketching out your shapes, I would really recommend that you have a good bit of water in there. It'll make the paint a lot easier to paint a nice clean line with. I'm just gonna go ahead and fix that a little bit. Okay, there we go. And then I'm gonna go back with my small brush, and I'm gonna go ahead and about halfway up my little rock cliff here, I'm going to paint in some long wavy lines. And my trick for this is, once again, that you're going to keep that black paint nice and watered down. And then the other thing you want to do is, if you want to practice on your palette, you can, is that you want to pull your brush. You don't want to push. So I'm pulling this way. If you push, you're going to get a jagged, you see how that line looks different even on just the palette? So I'm going to angle my hand so that I'm going to pull. All right, so I'll just add in a few more here. If they cross over, great. If you want a whole bunch of them, you can. If you just want a few, that's fine too. Change it up, make it your own. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Mine isn't even gonna look like mine. I just painted this. I finished this like, what, 2 minutes before I started this video. It's gonna look different. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up. Just have a nice time. That's what's important. If you're having fun, you're doing it right. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do my other rock cliff face thing. So this one started a little bit higher, and if it didn't, I'm gonna change it. So I'm gonna start about halfway up my canvas here, and I'm gonna start with just a little ledge, and then I'm going to pull that down so it kind of falls off, and I'll put in a little bump there, and then another little bump, and I'm just gonna let that fall down the canvas. I'm going to switch back over to my larger brush, medium brush, large brush, whatever you want to call it. And again, I'm going to fill this in. And while you're filling this in, if you want to like wiggle your brush around a little bit, that can help it look like it's got kind of a rocky texture to it. And if you didn't do that on the first one, you can always go back in and wiggle your brush around and give it a little bit more of that texture if you'd like. And if you do like that texture, again, keeping your paint a little bit watered down really helps with that. If you do just flat, straight black without any water in it, you're not gonna get a textured look. It's just gonna be flat black, which is fine. No problem with that if that's the way you like it. But again, I like my shadows to be a little bit more luminous. So I'm gonna grab my smaller brush again, and it got a little thick, so I'm gonna add a little bit more water to my paint. And then I'm gonna come up to the top of my cliff, and again, I'm going to angle my hand so that I'm gonna pull this paint up. And then I'm gonna add in a few more of these wispy layers. All right, so I'm happy with that. So we've got our whale shark type situation in here, and then I'm gonna put in these two angelfish. And I think when I did this the first time, I was okay with it overlapping, but now I'm not as crazy about it overlapping, honestly. So I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, and I'm gonna start it over a little bit further. So I'm gonna start with this kind of like parenthesis type shape, fancy parenthesis shape. And then I'm going to put in this kind of oval behind it. And then I'm gonna add another little C shape, kind of follow that for the top fin. And then I like to kind of fill things in before I do the tail, so I'm gonna do that. Oops, hello. And if your paint does spit like that, if you work quickly enough, I'm gonna use the tiny brush. I've got a nice clean damp brush, and then I just kind of wiggle it on top, and that'll help pull out the paint. So I'm sure I'll have plenty of opportunities to show you how to do that again in the future, but for today I'm just gonna do that. So if you do that and you don't know how, it was too quick, just, you can have a little bit of sea debris in your painting. It's fine. Okay, so then for the tail, I'm gonna do another one of those little parentheses, but I'll make it a little bit smaller. So it's kind of like an S curve with an upside down S attached. And then I'll just add a little bit of extra layer of paint next to that. So there we go, we've got our angelfish. And then I'm realizing his top fin's a little bit too short, so I'm gonna go ahead and make it a little bigger with another little S curve on top. All right, so I'm gonna get my smaller angelfish in here, and I'm gonna start that about halfway between the nose of my fish and the bottom of my canvas. And this one's gonna be smaller. I'm gonna put in another little S curve, parenthesis, and I'll just fill a little bit of that in. And then I'm gonna do like a U shape kind of oval behind it and fill that one in. And then I'll put in my little tail. Add a little extra there. I'm gonna add a little more at the bottom because they're kind of more squared off. Not square, but you know what I mean. They've got more bulk at the bottom than they do at the top. So there we go. Happier with that. And then I put in this little eel kind of poking out. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more water to my black paint, because again, it's, as paint sits, it gets drier and it doesn't thin out, it thickens as it sits. So I'll just mix in a little bit more black, a little bit more water into my black. And then I've got my eel here, so I'm just gonna put in a curved line. So I've got kind of like an S curve going on with a little extra knobbly thing here at the back, front, back, front, face, whatever. So then I'll follow that to thicken that up. And then when it comes to the face, I'm just going to put in the top part. It's another little S curve. And then I'm gonna leave a little open space. Oh, I gave him a crazy jaw, that's fine. I'm just gonna thicken him up a little bit more to fix that. Okay. So there's my little eel coming out of the rocks. And then for my little school of fish here, I'm going to switch over to that tiny brush that I didn't think I was gonna use today, but I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make them a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna switch to this super tiny brush. Again, add a little bit more water to some of this black here so it's nice and thin. Yeah, perfect. And then I'm going to, it's a little bit damp, so I wanna be careful of where I put my hand at the moment. I might end up leaving that school out. We'll see, we'll see. You know what, actually, I'm gonna take a minute to let this dry because like this is gonna get crazy. So yeah, I'll see you guys back in a few minutes. Again, if you wanna use a blow dryer, if you're in a hurry, or if you wanna sit in front of a fan while you paint, you can do it that way. But yeah, I tend to get up and make a cup of tea or have a little snack. So yeah, I'm just gonna pause this for a few minutes and we'll come back and add in our little school of fish here. Okay, so my painting isn't 100% dry, but it's close enough. So I am going to use that tiny brush that I was talking about. Mix that in with my black. Take that a little bit thinned out. And then when I'm gonna do detail work, I like to kind of wipe off the edge of my brush a bit. So again, I'm pulling just to get a little bit of extra paint off, and that helps make it a nice fine tip. So I'm gonna start a little bit above my rock cliff here, and I'm gonna just do a little marquee shape. And then I'm gonna do a little tiny V shape for the tail. And I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. And then for my next one, I'm gonna do, again, a little marquee shape. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of a C curve off the back here. And then get my little V curve at the end. Go ahead and fill that in. And then my next one, just behind the second. Oops, got a little long there, that's okay. And so at first I'm gonna put in the little marquee shape. And again, little V shape at the back. Go ahead and fill that in. If you guys wanna change up your scheme, that's totally fine. But the next one is gonna start about where the back of the fin is beginning here. I'm just gonna do a little smaller guy. All right. And then I'm gonna do a few little tiny baby ones. And then, I don't know if I want to put in these little guys down here, but I started with them, so we'll put them in anyway. Yeah, so I'm going to, again, just do a little marquee shape, and then I'm just putting my fin at the back, opposite direction of the ones I had earlier. And there's not as much space down here, but that's okay. Just put in a few more little guys. I might put one just kind of hanging out behind me. These things overlap in real life. I'm gonna put 2 more actually. That feels right to me. There we go. So now this is nice and dry. It's not glossy. I'm going to go ahead and really clean out what I ended up using as the medium brush. That's the slightly thicker one. This was like the super detail one. This is the one we were using earlier. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab some white, and I'm gonna start at the center of this, and I'm going to try to somewhat unevenly place in some more rays of light. So yeah, you can just pick out a few areas that are already kind of highlighted and make them even brighter. So I'm kind of overlaying. And with this one, I thinned out the paint a little tiny bit. You can start with a thicker paint and then add a little bit of water and see where that takes you. But yeah, I like to try to make this look a little bit uneven. So some areas you're going to get a little bit more heavy-handed. And then in some areas you can just leave it a little bit lighter. All right, so when you're happy with how much white, I'm gonna add a little tiny bit more. When you're happy with how much white you have going on here, It's a little too much. That's okay. I'm gonna thin that out. Okay, so when you're happy with how much white you have, I'm going to clean out my brush again. And then this one's a little bit thin for me, this angelfish here. So I'm gonna go back in with my black paint and I'm gonna add a second layer just to darken that up a bit. So when things are closer to you, they tend to look darker or more vibrant. So because these angelfish are supposed to be really close to me, I want to make sure they're nice and dark. So I'm gonna get a little bit more of this black paint, or a lot more, that's fine too. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not thinning this out as much as I did before or at all, because I want it to look nice and thick and be more striking and bold compared to some of the other things. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one as well, because it's also kind of closer up. These guys are bigger and further away, so they can stay nice and thinned out, but I want these guys to be a little bit thicker. And for the detail areas, you might have to thin it out a little bit more. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I think I'm gonna leave this guy grayed out, and then I'm gonna leave the rocks and the seaweed grayed out because they're kind of translucent. And then again, like I said, these guys are further away, so I'm gonna leave them the way they are. And then the last thing everyone should do is sign your work. So I'm gonna grab that detail brush again, and I'm gonna go ahead and grab some thinned out, watered down black paint. And then I'm gonna look for a place that I want to sign this. Feeling probably somewhere over here, generally where people sign. Oh, I got a little too much water in there. Yeah, I'm gonna sign it over here. Ta-da! All right, so I hope you guys had fun. And my only question for you is, what do you think? Do you think the original came out better, or do you think that the one that I just did came out better? Let's see if I can move this over. If you want to leave me a comment, or if you think they look close enough to the same that, you know, it's all good. Anyway, I hope you guys had a good time, and if you feel like liking or subscribing, that would be lovely. Eventually, I'm gonna get a tip jar and virtual tip jar and add a link to that below. I haven't figured that out yet, but when I do, if you feel like leaving a tip, that would be fantastic. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.